All right, the Lord be with you. Let us pray. God, we give you thanks for this day and the opportunities that it provides. Give you thanks for the cold that reminds us we're alive. Give you thanks for the faithfulness and the generosity and the stewardship of this community. And as we gather to look at how we've spent our money and how we plan to spend in the coming year, we ask for your grace, we ask for your guidance, we ask for your presence. In Christ's name, amen. All right, so you should have on your table. If you don't, we've got some sitting around. Very enthralling reading. It's our monthly financial report. This is the January report. The top sheet is each month DJ, who's our treasurer. I'll explain a little bit how the finance works. DJ is our treasurer. He works with Sue. She was here. She's in the office probably doing the financial manager work. She works with the financial manager. And DJ prepares this report. It goes to Gary, who's chair of the finance committee. So they're kind of the three finance people. And then it goes to the finance committee. If you're on the finance committee, raise your hand in here. So we've got senior warden, the finance people, me, and then there's both vestry members and parishioners. You don't have to be a vestry person to be on the finance committee. They meet every month, the Saturday before the vestry meeting, so we met yesterday. We look over this, we talk about anything coming up, things like that, and then the vestry receives this and talks about that. That's how the monthly reporting goes. All of this gets posted with our minutes online. That's usually a month late because we wait till the minutes have been approved for the previous month, and I just know y'all are dying to look at our vestry minutes, and so you're waiting until we upload them. If you ever want to see, happy to share whenever all of this. If you ever want to, we believe in radical transparency, so if you have questions, talk to DJ, talk to Sue, talk to me. We're an open book about this kind of stuff. Sue, as our finance manager, she handles the day-to-day, cutting checks, getting those signed by people. I'm not a signer, I'm not supposed to be, and I'm not. So she tracks down people who are signers, and we do all that. She reconciles everything. She does the day-to-day, the finance manager job. The treasurer looks at the overall, making sure the monthly stuff, that we have the money to do the day-to-day, right? And then the finance chair works on all of that and the bigger picture stuff, every year we do a financial review. It's not an audit. We do an internal review, our best practices in the Episcopal Church and best practices in our diocese specifically. For our size, an internal review by a committee is what's recommended. 2 years ago, we did an outside review. It was short of an audit, but it was a CPA who looked at our stuff. We did that 2 years ago, coming into the diocese, knowing we're about to do some renovations, things like that. We just wanted to do it, and they found nothing. Our financial review finds nothing. Minor things that we clear up and we figure out and is helpful. So that's kind of the annual reporting mechanism. That stuff all goes to the diocese, and the diocese sticks it in a file and hopefully never looks at it again. Because if the diocese starts looking at those things, it's because something bad has happened. And so we like it when things say everything's good, and they file it away, and they don't bother us. So that's kind of the monthly and the annual, how finance works. Any questions about process before we dive into it? I'm just leaving this up here so y'all can look at we're not having a hard conversation today. I've been in churches where we have hard conversations. We are actually going to have some good conversation about dreams and hopes, but process questions. You ever wonder how these things work? Okay. So the finance report, DJ writes a cover letter essentially for us people that don't speak spreadsheets so we can understand what's going on. And then for you who do speak spreadsheets or QuickBooks, good luck. You can turn to those next several pages. Those are all in there. We get the monthly activity every month. Quarterly, we get reports on the temporarily restricted funds, which are money we've been given for a purpose that just hasn't been spent yet, right? And then we also have some permanently restricted funds. We can talk about some of that stuff if we want to. That stuff doesn't change much year over year. So bottom line, our income was above plan. It was 583,000. Virtually every income category was above plan. You all told us how much you were going to give. That's called pledging, right? Y'all actually gave more than that. Usually, most churches discount their pledge income by about 10% because we know job struggles happen or you need to replace roofs or whatever. Like life happens, right? And we always talk in here, this is no shame zone. If you pledge something and you know you can't do it, it's okay. Talk to us, right? No stress, no shame. But y'all actually gave us more. And so that's one bucket category. I think I have a slide for this. We'll talk about the buckets while we're looking at this, and I'll come back to this. So pledge income is obviously the biggest bucket. Non-pledge income, this covers a couple things. This covers some things. If y'all just like throw an extra $5 or an extra money toward it, it goes there. Or when new people come throughout the year, right? We only pledge at the end of the year for the next year. And so someone who joins the congregation in May and gives regularly, even if they fill out a pledge card or whatever, we don't recategorize that. The pledges are like a snapshot at the end of the year before, with one caveat because I'm going to issue a challenge. So non-pledge is new folks who come in, things like that. And then plate receipts, that's people who show up one Sunday and put $5 in the plate, things like that happen there. Other contributions operating. Which one is this, DJ?
Flowers.
Oh yeah, this is when we pay like name tags, flowers, when like we give money toward a thing. The curate support, spoiler alert, this number's jumped up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is money we get from the diocese, and you can't read the bottom. So total operating income last year was 580, like we said, versus
614.5.
well, that's for next year. We'll talk about that in a minute. Looking for the right page on this report.
What number are you looking at?
I'm looking, the budgeted plan for total income was 553. And then the actual income was 583. So all those budget categories, income categories that folks gave more than we had planned for, totaled up to about $30,000 extra. Expenses were also lower. This is due for a number of things. One, we had put money in for assisting clergy. We didn't use all of that, and so there were some savings there. We had put money in for a finance manager. Our finance managers continued on a voluntary basis, and so we didn't use that, so thank you, Sue. Youth minister, our youth minister moved, and so we didn't use up all of that. And buildings and grounds had a banner year, because in previous years, they blew through their budget, Dick. But this past year, they were very much under budget, which some of that's just luck, right? A lot of it is stewardship and caretaking of the property, but some of it is just luck. And so it worked out. Other income or other expense categories, all under budget or right at budget, with a little variance that did not make DJ worry or Gary worry. When both of these gentlemen are happy at the same time, things are good. So that leaves us with a surplus, which we'll talk about in a minute. Questions about that stuff? Income, expenses. All right.
Excuse me, what
Yeah.
page are you on up there?
I'm not going through a page. This is just the whole report. I'm not going through this page by page, but this is what I was looking at is page 3. That's like the top sheet.
There's 28 pages.
Well, it's numbered page 3. That's just the top line, income categories, expense categories, where you can see the only expense category that was over budget was communications by $9. And what?
And 4
Yeah,
cents.
and 4 cents. And so I'll give you some cash later, DJ. Because that's probably me buying an extra banner or something. So yeah, that's page 3. That's the top sheet. And then if you want the details, because some of these categories have subcategories, those are the following sheets. And so we're not going to walk through all of this. You're always welcome to come to a finance committee meeting if you want to look through all of this. If you have specific questions, we can talk through that. Yeah. One thing you'll notice, if you look, one thing I want to point out, if you look through on page 4, well, hold on. I don't see it spelled out here. But there's a line item in our budget that's for 4 Saints on the expense side, and you'll see that we didn't spend $10,000 there. But that's not true. That $10,000 was set aside assuming no one gave anything in the red envelopes. Y'all gave more than $60,000 in the red envelopes. And so, yeah, so if you look at like this, a strict budget category for outreach, it looks like maybe we didn't spend everything. We spent $75,000, $80,000 in outreach versus a budget of $25,000. So that's a way where, because the pass-through it gets confusing, but you'll see the total that has gone out to folks from outreach budget was $15,000. From 4 Saints, which is a different bucket, was more than $60,000. Okay, page 8 shows that. And so if you look through there and wonder, we said we were going to spend $25,000 in outreach and we only spent $15,000. Spreadsheets sometimes lie, right? If we don't know where to look. So that's just one. That's probably the biggest hole that if you read through this, you might notice. Because outreach, we want to make sure if we're committing money, and we're going to talk about we're really committing money in the coming year, we're going to do it, right? And y'all, we have more than done it. So don't let that worry you. If you remember last year, we had a similar story. We ended the year with about $71,000 and change more. And so the vestry decided how we were going to use that money. This is what we did. We sent some to wildfire relief in California, playground, HVAC, emergency fund, all that's been dispersed. The new website, we spent $6,000 of that throughout the year, and then the company that we were using had kind of a catastrophic, I don't even know how to describe it. They just stopped responding. Their websites, which are some of the big churches around the Episcopal Church, something happened there. And we're no longer working with that company. We're no longer redesigning the website. So that $6,000 was spent on a learning exercise, maybe. We've instead doubled back on our current website and making the best of that. So that's, if you wonder how we spent the surplus last year, all of it was spent for good things except for one chunk, which I'm happy to talk about that some other time. So that was last year. This year, our surplus, I said we had a $91,000 end of year surplus in the balance sheet. We're actually going to, Vestry's going to start talking about it today, and then we'll finish talking about it next month at our meeting. The difference between January 26 and January 25, we're going to take a snapshot of that difference, and it'll actually be more than $90-something thousand, probably be closer to $120,000 extra, because things have grown through interest, things have grown through the surplus and all of that. And so our practice here, because we now have a practice because this has happened 3 years in a row, is we use them for what are potentially one-time or extraordinary expenses, right? We don't use this to cover day-to-day operations. We don't use this to keep the lights on, because we're not struggling to keep the lights on. We're having different conversations in lots of churches. And so what are we going to do here? Design work for two of them, the vestry is going to vote today to do. And then the others, I'm going to have a couple minutes where y'all can throw out ideas of things we can dream about, and not everything's going to stick and not everything's going to get done. But I want to go, and the vestry's here, we want to hear what are some other dreams or ideas. If we had money sitting around, what could we do? Because we have money sitting around. The two things that we are going to do is we need $25,000-ish, right? Yeah, $25,000 to do some additional design work that the bishop urged us to do as far as acoustics and sound in the church renovations, right? The bishop, when he was here, told the vestry that he couldn't hear people singing until he walked through the pews, and that we need to fix that. He said it in a much nicer way. But we were like, yeah, I know. Because when y'all, I don't know if any of y'all swung a hammer, but it was people like y'all sitting in the pew, swung a hammer to build that thing. None of you were thinking about the acoustics.
Well,
Right?
you might have been thinking about how badly we sing.
Maybe. And so the story of that church is it was hand-built by parishioners after they went to church and they had some soup. They would walk from where the trailer was and go put up walls. That's how it happened. We're now going to have professionals come and do it, which we'll talk about that in the coming months. So $25,000 go into that. The curate fund. So the vestry is going to vote today, and if we're all in agreement, we're going to apply this month to try to get a curate July 1. So that does a couple things. If you remember our previous curate, Gavin Tomlin of blessed memory, we paid half, and the diocese paid half. It's a 50-50, right? And it's $82,000 roughly. And so going into this, there's options for a church. If just they're flush with cash, they can just cover the whole thing. They actually move to the top of the list for curates, right? Because there's always more curates than there are churches. There's always more churches that are interested than curates. Another option is to do the 50-50, which is how it's designed. And that's one way the church supports churches, is they subsidize the curates. Because we're training a curate, right? There's something required of me as the supervisor and y'all of the congregation. We become a teaching lab. We do it for 2 years and we send them off, right? A curate is not someone who's coming here to learn how to be here and going to stay here. That's not how it works. We got to figure out the budget to get more money to hire an associate if that's what we want to do. This is a teaching learning lab. What we're going to do is we're going to split the difference because there's a third option. We can ask for half of a grant from the diocese. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, from our operating budget, cover half of it. If we calculate it for a whole year, that'd be $40,000 from our budget that goes to the curate. This year it would only be $20,000 because it's only 6 months when they would start. The diocese is going to pay a quarter of that, right? The diocese is going to give us this year $10,000 if we get a curate. Next year, for a full year, it'll be $20,000. That's still a shortfall. And so we're going to set up a temporarily restricted curate fund from the surplus that will fund the 2 years of the curate. So we're basically going to grant that other quarter to ourselves, right? Knowing this isn't ongoing, a curate's not meant to be forever. And so we're not rolling in salary to money that we don't know is going to be there in the future. We're setting aside money that we know is here to help fund something for 2 years, right? So this does, this does two things. One, if we're able to pay that extra quarter, another church who can't might have an opportunity, right? And so we're being good stewards of our money, which is also helping other congregations, right? Another thing it does is it gives us a goal to work toward if we want to be self-sustaining on a second clergy person. If we want to be self-sustaining on a curate, we're looking at $80,000, $85,000 a year. If we're looking to be self-sustaining on associate rector, who's not here for 2 years and leaves, it's going to be more than that. Okay, so this helps us see what it's like, grow our budget, which it's growing from last year to this year, and maybe we get some runway. I don't know if we get there or not, but that's a couple things that this does. Yeah, Margot.
Okay, so our fiscal year is January through December, right?
Yeah.
But the curate year is July to June 30th?
Yeah, because they won't graduate and be ordained until,
So it's like a half year, a full year, a half.
Exactly. So we're setting aside $40,000 of this surplus, $10,000 for this year, $20,000 for 2027, $10,000 for 2028, which we don't know that we need because, for Gavin, he was only here for a month. We're not guaranteed 2028, right? Because if we do a great job, someone's going to want to hire that person for that full-time associate, right? Or as a rector, right? Yeah. So that's how that works. Yeah.
Okay, so when
month. So what was the balance? Where did the balance of that money go to?
There wasn't a balance of money.
So it's
We get the money. We get the money from the diocese every month.
okay. So they didn't pay. All right.
They paid $3,000 for the 1 month and change, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other question is, we're talking about paying like possibly $80,000 for a curate, and we still do not have an associate priest fund. Is that something that should be, or the vestry has talked about?
What do you mean?
For an associate priest, you said we needed $85,000 per year.
Yeah.
Who's funding that?
No.
No, that's for the curate. That's for the curate. So the curate expense line item will be $85,000 per year. If we take a full year, I trust you all understand it's half for this year, full for next year. So for next year, it'll be $85,000, the expense line item. We'll also have an income line item of $20,000 from the diocese, an expense line item, essentially $20,000 from our own grant from ourselves, and the rest of it will be covered from operating. You can see in the budget, which the budget is back here. If you go back to page 10, if you go to 10, 11, I actually got it up here. Our operating budget for 2026, I missed a thing in the slides. I screwed up. Our operating, oh no. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Our operating expenses is $614,556. We have a perfectly balanced budget, and we'll talk about a couple things with that.
Except it says 25
On top, yeah, that's my error, is I meant it to say 2026. So our operating expenses, this is up $65,000. 40,000 of that, basically, is the curate. So we have a line item in here. You'll see under, it's on page 11, payroll and benefits. Down there under my stuff, you'll see curate halfway through the year. We budgeted to spend $6,800 a month. So we don't have an associate rector fund because we don't have an associate rector. We're not to that point. We're paying for the curate. Like the vestry's seen 3 years worth of budgets where we're paying for this through the end. And we essentially have a balanced budget for 3 years with that. So yeah, the vestry's contemplated that. The vestry has to, before I can apply next week for the curate, I have to send them our financials, I have to send them our budget. They have to see that we have the money, which we're choosing to do some other things. We could actually fund the entire curate just from our operating, but we're choosing to do some other things. Yeah. Because of y'all's generosity in past years and the generosity of your pledging, which I didn't throw up here, but the last sheet on this packet, pledging is up substantially. So we're able to do some things here. Does that answer your question? We have that line item. It's in there. We understand that it's going to be a 2-year thing, and the vestry hasn't, and I'm not at a point where we're getting this curate and we're going to train them and send them off. We're not at the point as a parish. I actually enjoy mentoring curates. Like some churches just do this. I had my curacy in a church that does this and has spun off a bishop and cathedral deans and a rector and Keller for whatever that's worth. You know, some churches just do that. That's part of their charism, and we're like that, right? We'll talk about the diocese recognizing that in a minute and something else they're asking us to do. And so that's the plan, is like we're not going to get this curate and like we're going to fall in love with them, probably, whatever, and then we're going to send them off and it's going to be sad. But it's going to be sad because the process is working, right? Okay, so here's where that additional money, so we said this is up $65,000. $25,000 of it, $26,000 and some change actually, is because we're doubling the amount in our budget that we're committing to outreach, okay? And this isn't just us upping the Four Saints because we know y'all are gonna write big checks for red envelopes. Four Saints is still a separate thing. So please keep writing big checks for the red envelopes. This is, part of this is our Kenyan partnership. Mark, who's in seminary, we work with him and he serves with us. And so part of it is us helping him with seminary, right? So that comes out of this. right? Yeah. And so that's a portion that comes out of this. And so we've upped the budget there. UGM and Presbyterian Night Shelter, we're going to increase the amount of money that we give them just at the beginning of the year. There's a lot of times we respond to things that they need. Or Linda will come and say, we need a bunch of diapers, I'm like, go buy diapers and we'll get you a check. And like because of your generosity, we can always say yes. But at the beginning of the year, just the check we give them is going to go up, right? We're going to be able to expand. Last week I mentioned that if you're in like an arts program at your school or something, like talk to me. One thing we like to do is support our students in that way. 2 of y'all. And so this week we supported a ballet theater company that has a show coming up and a show choir that has a show coming up. Because part of this outreach is to show our kids that we care, right? And to show the community around the kids that there's a church that cares as well. So it enables us to do more of that stuff. And so if you ever have ideas about outreach and wonder how are we going to pay for this, right? The elderberries are doing this new thing and they're like, how can we, do whatever? It's like we can figure out how to help pay for this stuff, all right? And so that's part of what that does. And so $26,000 of that increased budget goes there. Another $20,000 is for next year is the curate. 2.8% raises for staff. I did not get a raise this year because I opted to have that go towards my continuing education. Because my continuing education the past couple of years wasn't enough for me to go to some conferences, so I was paying out of pocket, whatever. And so I asked for that in lieu of a raise to increase my continuing education. And then we've also, again, set aside $5,000 each for financial manager for when someone decides they no longer want to do this, and for a youth minister if we get to the point where, and I have some ideas about how that works. I enjoy Sunday afternoons hanging out with the youth and doing all that stuff, but I think there's ways to support that. So that's where, and other things have gone up based on like inflation projections to, energy use. All other things have gone up. So the big things, like the real movers in this is doubling outreach and adding in a curate. That's a big salary position there. The other things are all tagged to inflation, cost of living adjustment kind of things. And that gets us to why 2026 we're projected to spend $65,000 more. Questions about that stuff? Yeah.
I'm looking over on page 12 and I see that your supply clergy, is that all that we need for a supply clergy?
Yeah, because hopefully we don't actually need supply clergy. The only reason we need supply right now is if Mark and I are both gone the same day. This year, the curate would not be a priest. So if Mark and I were gone and the curate were here, we would still need a priest. And so we'd need to do that. Next year, if we have 3 priests, we won't. But we keep that in there just in case. Because, right, we paid a supply clergy person for a Sunday that I was supposed to be here, but I got stuck at an airport. Right? And so sometimes things happen. And yeah. And so a supply clergy person, the supply rate in this diocese is $300. And so our budget in there, I just looked at it, it was 1,000 or something. 2,000. So I don't get 7 weeks off, right? And so even if you paid for a supply clergy person for every week that I'm on vacation, it wouldn't reach that. There's other things, like one thing we would do right now, everyone who preaches is a man, right? All the clergy. And if the curate happens to be a man, we're going to bring in women to preach. And that might involve paying a supply fee for that as well, right? Because we're doing that even if they're not celebrating and stuff like that. So that gives us some flexibility there in order to bring that up. Lots of parishes that have multi-clergy staff don't budget for supply. And so we've put it in there both in case, Mark and I are both stuck in Colorado Springs or whatever, or so we can bring in guest preachers as well. Yeah.
How is a curate chosen?
How's a curate chosen? They're not.
There's not.
Yeah. So that process, this week I'll fill out some paperwork online, upload our budget, upload our 2025 finances. I can put in some criteria. I don't actually, because the more criteria you put in, the more limited you are. Because if you say you want someone who does this, and the diocese doesn't have someone who does this, then maybe you move lower down. I can work with anybody. Gavin proves that. You leave me and you're, no. And so I'll put very few things there. Plus, these people are all brand new priests. They don't actually know what they're good at. They maybe think they do, but they don't. I've been doing this a long time and I still don't know what I'm good at. And so do that. And then in March or April, I'll get a list of like 3 or 4 names. And each senior in seminary, there's maybe 10 of them. I interviewed them all last week, and Ed was just in here, I thought. Maybe not. He interviewed them all through the Commission on Ministry. And they'll get a list of 3 or 4 churches. And then it becomes like speed dating, right? They'll go to their little churches, and I'll interview mine. And every time I'll go back to Kalora, who's our canon for transitions, who oversees all this. And my response, regardless, will be, they're wonderful and I would work with them. It would have to be something like super diabolical for me not to say that. I can veto. I can't request. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if there's someone that I just know for whatever reason, this isn't going to work, I can say not that person. If there's someone that I just absolutely love, I can't say I want that person, right? The bishop and Canon Johnson look at all of this and figure it out, right? Any other questions about the curate or about the budget? We're doing great on time. Oh, yeah, Aya.
I just want to say a big thank you to the vestry and Father Allen. 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, you did mention that 10% of the budget is going to go for outreach. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah.
I think we should applaud the parish.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's something we've been working toward, right? We've been working toward bringing more things into the budget and not just having. It used to be, when I first got here, the youth ministry stuff we did was based on what we brought in, generally at one designated offering throughout the year. I forget which one. And we very quickly brought that into the budget, right? Outreach was stuff that, I think outreach was whatever the end of year offering was what we did for the next year. We brought that into the budget, right? Because we don't, and that's part of going with pledges, right? When we see the pledges go up, we'll probably see a similar decrease in like open plate and things because folks are committing to a pledge rather than just giving what they can when they can, right? Neither are good, bad, or indifferent, but it changes things. When we bring things into the budget, we're committing to do that regardless of if someone just like wins the lottery and says we could do this. Does that make sense? Bringing it into the budget allows us to commit to it. And so increasing outreach to 10% of income. It's not 10% of total expenses because whatever, but 10% of pledge income, basically, is what that's tagged to. And in future years, that's what it'll be tagged to as well. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can talk to a DJ,
Sure.
don't mind to increase the budget to the elderberry to 5 and digging to 5. That would be great.
Okay.
So if you read this closely, if you read the budget closely and then look at the pledge, if you read page 10 and page 13, you'll notice that page 10, our pledge income, the budget item is $484,000 roughly. Our latest pledge report, which includes last week, is $496, right? So we're actually undershooting our pledge income in the budget by $10,000. So that's 2 things. One, we could increase that and balance the budget and figure out how to spend the other money. We may not do that before vestry meets. But the other thing I may want to challenge is if you're out here and you haven't submitted a pledge and you have in the past, we're $4,000 away from getting $500,000 in pledges. And so this isn't like everyone go out there and like increase your, no. But if you haven't yet pledged, this is an opportunity, you still can, and we could get there. when you look at the pledges, looking at page 12 there with the pledge report, one thing I want to point out, the median or the average pledge has actually decreased, which is the average pledge decreasing is actually a sign of an increasing healthy congregation. Oh, it's 13. Sorry. I'm telling you the wrong page. Page 13. So if you look at the top, in 2025, $428,000 in pledges, almost $5,000 average pledge. This year, about $500,000 in pledge. The average pledge has dropped to $4,800, right? And so the reason that's a good thing when the average pledge drops is it's more people are participating, so it's not weighted heavily to the folks who contribute more, right? When the average pledge is super high, we're actually relying on big pledges to do this, right? When the average pledge drops, we're relying on more folks contributing at typical levels, okay? The average pledge across the country is less than $3,000, I believe, for churches. And so we're above that. And it's not just like weighted heavily towards the whatever. We have people who pledge a lot and whatever. But we have 103, which is, almost 20% more than we had last year, participating. And some of that is new folks who've joined in the past year. We look around and we see new folks. Some of that is folks who've just been regular givers, finally saying, no, I'm going to pledge and commit. So it's both of those things there.
It's not those teenagers who decide they're going to pledge their own money and mom can't tell me how to be a church.
Yeah, no, that's some of it as well. And then you can look down and we break this down. Just so y'all know, I know who pledges because I write you thank you notes. I don't know what you pledge, right? I don't see that information. I see aggregate, like this stuff. Vestry sees aggregate, like this stuff. The people that know what you pledge is our finance manager and the parish administrator, because it's record keeping. And so we can see in here the number of new pledges, the number of people who've increased, the number of people who kept the same, the decrease level, right? We had one, there are some people who are still around that haven't pledged. That just happens. Some people just think they pledge, or the husband thinks the wife pledged, and the wife thinks, and whatever. We don't just discount that. We also know if you fall in one of those categories, we just shift that over to non-pledge income because we know you're still here, we know you're still giving, all of that. And so it all works out there. These are numbers we track kind of weekly during the stewardship campaign, and then we look at it at the end of the year.
Question.
Yeah.
The pledges that you were saying, decrease, is that consideration for people who have moved away, who have passed away? Is that one of the reasons why? They're not where we are?
No, if you look down another thing, we actually don't have any. Those are just people who last year gave X, and for whatever reason this year are giving X minus 5 or whatever. Those are people who are still pledging. We have another line item down here, people who have moved away or have died. That's only a handful. That's not up here in these numbers. Yeah.
A question about Memorial Garden. So Memorial Garden, does that include the grounds, like the gardening and stuff, and the plates that they put down for deaths, right? And the fountain? Is there any way the Memorial Garden Committee has been asking for a very, very long time for the very long time. There's wires. We have a sprinkler system and we have a fountain that's kind of a babbling brook instead of a fountain.
Yeah.
And we've been asking for many, many years.
The conduit.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to know how much it costs, and then we can.
Yes, but we haven't been, anyway, it feels like it's dead in the water, literally. And people like me, who's out working in the garden, have accidentally broken, dug up the wire.
No, I mean, that goes back. So we're looking for how to spend money.
And because he said we didn't spend any money last year for Memorial Garden, because I know we got some donations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
So two things here.
we really need that concept.
Two things here. If there's money in the Memorial Garden Fund, it doesn't care what the vestry matters. It doesn't matter what the vestry says. If that's how Memorial Garden, right, you work with the vestry. But here are surplus capital improvements like this. If this is an ongoing issue, Memorial Garden, we can talk separately. get some estimates, and we'll figure this out. This is,
Right, there's a boss, Memorial Garden boss.
yeah. So we'll figure out, this, to me, seems like a wonderful way to, because a lot of this goes to capital improvement kind of things. We're getting quotes on the playground to do additional improvements to the playground, things like that.
I do know when the scouts were trying to do they had panic attacks when they hit wires.
Yeah.
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 Another guy when I cut them both. Twice.
So it's 10:15. We need to get ready for church. Rebecca?
We had a funeral yesterday here, and there was lots of people that were not from our church that were coming in from Dallas for the funeral. And I was kind of sitting in the back, and they were talking about how wonderful our church is, how they walked in the building and felt love. And it's just, I think that really talks about our place. You know, I was just so elated that people that have never been here felt how our church is.
Yeah, we get that a lot. Number one, because this is a wonderful and loving congregation. But funerals, for my money, is the absolute best thing that Episcopal churches do. Our burial liturgy and things like that. Not just this church, although we do that. But then hospitality, the way we look at all of that. I had people walk in today and I was like, wow, this looks great. And so thank you, Rebecca, and your team. And thank y'all for the welcoming atmosphere. Yeah. Gene, too. You're right there. You were helping, too. Gary, last comment.
Okay, Father Allen mentioned that we do an annual review with the committee each year. I am always looking for people to add to the team. So if you have bookkeeping, accounting, finance experience, please see me if you want to participate. It takes one day. I added Margot to the team last year, and we were here, 4 hours?
Right.
5 hours. Michael joined us last year. We were here, again, about 5 hours. It's not that difficult. But anyway, if anybody wants to join the team, I'd sure appreciate it. Because sometimes we have the same people looking at the same stuff. It's nice to get a fresh set of eyes on occasions like that. So anyway, you see me, I just need your name and email address, and then I can get you plugged in, and you can do that.
Awesome.
I'll do it, we'll get through the new vestry starting, and then maybe March, April, May. It's kind of hard to get like 8 people together on a Saturday morning.
I will say, if you just want to help just with one thing, this is a perfect thing, because it's literally one day, 4 hours. I don't have any kind of degree, education in any of that stuff, but they're there to help you, and it's good.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
So you're happy.
Talk to Gary.
You can't be a vestry member, and you can't be a signer or a decision maker. So it's people that are outside the normal realm of doing things.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
So if you're interested in the annual review, talk to him. If you're interested in Finance Committee, what we do on that third Saturday, talk to Gary, talk to me. Vestry, always open if you want to come sit in. It's usually the third Sunday of the month, so it's this Sunday. If the third Sunday is real close to the 15th, we sometimes kick it so Finance has time to do things. But you're always welcome to go into the conference room and hang out with us in there. All right. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks.